Are you tired of feeling like a walking dumpster fire despite doing everything right? Meet Tommy Barabee, my guest today. He's a guy who went from human disaster to health expert after years of being his own worst enemy. Sound relatable? In this episode that might actually change your life, no pressure, you'll learn why your healthy habits might actually be plotting against you, how to spot burnout before you become a cautionary tale, the truth about why you feel like trash, it's complicated, and some actually useful strategies that don't require selling your soul. Oh, and we'll also talk about why sleeping a little better is more useful than your entire supplement drawer. So put the phone in your pocket, hang out, unless, of course, you enjoy feeling like a zombie. Your choice. No judgment. Okay, maybe a little judgment.
But first, this is the Fit Mess, where together we learn to develop habits that help us live beyond our mental health struggles to create happier, healthier lives.
He's Zach. He lives in the future with his anxiety.
He's Jeremy, and he lives in the past with his depression. And we get together once a week in the present to share the obstacles we face and how we overcome them.
I love a man who practices what he preaches. I was just looking at what you do on Instagram in terms of some of the advice you give. I just watched a clip where you're talking about prioritizing sleep by wearing the blue blockers, among other things. And here we are with the blue blockers. Tell me why this is important to you. Obviously, it's 9 o'clock at night there for you, so you've got them on. But why is this a piece of your routine?
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, I suffered with insomnia from a very, very young age. And, you know, it wasn't until I was like 23, 24, I'd been in so many different jobs, right? I'd left jobs and quit jobs and got sacked from jobs, like fired, because I couldn't get a proper night's sleep. My best hours of sleep was between like 4 and 5 a.m. until like 10 or 11 a.m., yeah? So I was struggling so much for sleep all throughout my life. And it wasn't until I was about 25 that I decided to start reading a book in bed with candles. That was the first ever thing I'd done, and the first ever thing that noticeably improved my insomnia. From there, over the next 10 years, I did that and little other habits tacked on. The blue blocking glasses didn't come in until about 2 years ago. But over time, as you all know, you learn more things, you start implementing more things, finding what helps and what doesn't, and yeah, eventually got to the blue blockers, and they're a big part of it now. 10 p.m. they come on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It is funny how that happens, though, right? Like you do one little thing and see the needle move in the right direction, and all of a sudden you get really curious about, wow, if that's all it took, what else can I do?
Yeah, but I think as well, what a lot of people don't really see is like, I don't know, they might try one thing, right, and be like, nah, that doesn't work, or they might try a supplement, but actually what it really needs is to be 4 or 5 of those little things all together. That's when you start getting the difference. But too many people will try one thing and just write it off straight away.
Yeah, because everyone's looking for the magic pill for whatever ailment they're having. Like they want that one supplement to suddenly change their life, and odds are that's not going to be the thing.
Exactly, Jeremy.
So that poor sleep was just one of a number of problems. You had a couple decades of struggle that led you to where you are now. Set that up for us. What was that like?
Yeah, that was so basically, you know, I won't go into it too much because I want to keep it relevant, but I started off as a kid. I had a birth defect, had 3 operations by the time I was 8, 2 on the birth defect, 1 to have my tonsils out. Home life was a bit crazy. My mum had schizophrenia. It drove all my family away. First my dad, then my sister, then my brother. It was just me left with my mum. By the age of 9, I couldn't handle it anymore. I was a very sick kid as well. The insomnia started then. I was in and out of hospital with breathing issues, constant infections, and to top it all, my mum was the way she was. And I left home when I was 9 to move in with my dad. And then the chronic illness really started then, you know, eczema, psoriasis, the sleep issues got worse, anxiety, just honestly, the long list of symptoms, like, it's hard to believe how much was going on. But I became a personal trainer when I was about 23 years old. And the worst part of it was that I was far from a picture of health. And I was trying to get my body to look how I thought a personal trainer should look. But I wasn't sleeping, right? So how was I training hard and getting these workouts in? I was using a load of caffeine. I wasn't sleeping, and I was literally living off caffeine. I was having a Monster energy drink just to get myself to train a few clients, give them a bit of enthusiasm, you know. And then I was having a pre-workout to train. You know, I would do a training session and then I would go sleep in the gym after lunch. Lunch would put me to sleep. I'd find somewhere because as a PT, you do a few hours in the morning, in the daytime, you got a bit of free time, and in the evening, you got all the clients again. So in that daytime, instead of me going home, I was having lunch in the gym, and I was finding they had sunbeds in the gym. I was going to sleep on the sunbeds for a while, and then training the next lot of clients, which, again, I needed another Monster Energy drink to do. But as many of you listening will know, is that, it's like a vicious cycle. It's like you can't sleep then. The sleep is even worse. So, yeah, becoming a PT, that was the gateway into me getting myself to a better place health-wise.
So then what was the turning point? You went through all of this and it clearly wasn't working. So
yeah, it wasn't working. So, I got my body in a place where the only thing I was happy with, Jeremy, was the way my body looked. But from the head upwards, in fact, from the chest upwards, I absolutely hated myself because I was riddled with eczema and psoriasis. And it was so embarrassing. I'd wake up every morning, I'd look in the mirror, I'd get upset, and I'd think, wow, you've got to go in to work to, potentially be the picture of health, to train clients, to help them, but, you feel awful about yourself. And I guess even though all this other stuff I had going on, I guess that was the one thing, we've all got that one pain point that pushes us far enough that we're ready to do something about it. So it was that for me, yeah.
So what was step one? What did you do to turn things around?
Step one, I started with diet. I thought that I changed my whole diet completely. And I'd say I got about 5% better. But I'm telling you something now, 5% was absolutely huge to me right then. The depression lifted, the mood lifted, the skin got a little bit better, but 5% was huge to me. And I went on for a few years like this until 5% was no longer enough. I wanted more. Why was diet not giving me any more? Why was I having these flare-ups over and over again? Why was my sleep still not improving? Why were all these things still really bad for me? And obviously by then I'd exhausted all avenues of doctors and specialists and dermatologists and all the ologists, right? And, things just weren't changing for me. So then I gradually learned more and more and more. I was studying, I was learning off of scientists, doctors, professors, like everything I could. And it became my hobby and lifestyle to learn absolutely everything. Like I loved it. Because I thought, wow, I'm learning this stuff that, a lot of people don't really know. And I thought, I'm putting all these things into practice. I'm living this lifestyle. Why don't I help other people? Well, if first I can get myself well, I want to help other people overcome similar issues. I'm delighted to say I got myself well eventually by adding in not just diet, but looking at exercise, looking at stress reduction, looking at environmental toxicities, looking at, scientifically proven supplementation and fixing my sleep, which I'm still working on to this day, but, always still a work in progress. But yeah, all these little pieces just gradually like came on, tacked on.
Yeah. So this became much more than a hobby. It's now something you're doing for.
Now it's something I do. I help guys, overcome similar issues. Guys that are dealing with digestive issues, sleep, weight, libido, all that sort of thing. And a big piece of it for me as well, Jeremy, and this is what I wanted to talk about as well on your show, was I was training hard. I was training hard every day, but my inflammation levels were going up and up and up. And I was thinking, my diet is perfect, or what I would call perfect at the time, right?
Sure.
It's never a one-size-fits-all approach, It's never one diet for everyone. But at the time, I was thinking, I'm eating this way and I'm getting worse. I was training hard, I was training late, and what I didn't know at the time was I was keeping myself stuck in that sympathetic branch of the nervous system. That's not a place of healing. We need to be able to get into that part of the nervous system to train hard, to respond to stress. But when you're stuck in that fight or flight all the time, it's not a place where the body can feel safe and heal from these things.
So what's been the most surprising or the most sort of game-changing thing you've discovered, either for yourself or maybe a common thread in the guys you've worked with?
Yeah, there's just so many. I guess a common thing for guys that I work with is that when they're in what we call stage 1 of burnout, they haven't got a clue. They feel like they can do everything. They need very little sleep. They're sleeping 4 hours a night. They're working till midnight. They're training at 9 o'clock at night. They're smashing a pre-workout at like 8 p.m. to get through their workout. They feel like they can do everything, but they don't know. that's the first stage of burnout. That can only last so long until they get into stage 2 and stage 3, where the immune system starts showing signs of wear and tear. Things start happening. They get sick a bit more often. They're in pain a bit more often. They're fatigued and tired a little bit more often. They've got more brain fog. And yeah, many don't, obviously they don't come to me in that stage. They come a few stages along, when I work with guys. So yeah, and you will probably know yourself, it's hard to tell someone that they need to scale back to get better,
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah, there's a sort of a toxic thing in this space where someone's always trying to sell you what you need more of, what you need to add, what you need to, make a new part of your routine, when often it is like you need to do less, rest more, and focus on the basic. That's something we talk about here all the time. It's just like, you don't need the $1 million bottle of supplements. You don't need the crazy gym, tool that is the latest and greatest thing. You just got to get to bed on time. You got to not put trash in your face and drink a little bit of water once in a while. And man, how much better you'll feel overnight is crazy.
Exactly. And you also said in one of your other podcasts that it takes people about 50 times of hearing something, so hopefully they're hearing this enough.
Right. Maybe this is 49 or 50 for them today. So what do you do? So you work with guys and you try to get to the bottom of it. You talked about, there's a million different reasons for all these ailments that these guys are dealing with. What do you do to figure out what a specific need is for a specific client?
Well, with guys I work with, we have the option to use functional medicine lab testing. So we can use different ways of testing. We can use stool to look at how well the gut's functioning. Some guys, their stool is coming back with parasites, right? Or bacterial overgrowth, which is then causing them a whole host of other issues, right? It's just leading to loads of other symptoms. It could be allergies. It could be brain fog. It most often is brain fog. It's low libido, always, because these gut issues are perceived as the body as a stress. That's one test we might look at. We might look at especially a hair test, which is going to show us mineral levels, but also heavy metal accumulation. Again, heavy metals, mercury, arsenic and lead, they're weighing down the body. They're causing the body to be in a chronic state of stress. And as you probably know yourself, stress is just stopping that production of testosterone. So guys are dealing with this weight gain that seems to have come out of nowhere, or they're struggling to put muscle on, or they're not going to the gym and they feel like they're blaming it on a lack of motivation, when really it's sort of not their fault. They don't really know they've got this going on. And, it's these things that are putting them in a chronic state of stress. So we use different tests depending on the person, depending on the situation, to identify what's there too much of in the body, heavy metals, bacterial overgrowth, parasites, and what's there not enough of, vitamin deficiencies, mineral deficiencies. Because, people think of, calories, right? But what we really want to think about is the micronutrients, because those are the things that really determine how we look, think, feel and function on a day-to-day basis as well. And then there's the lifestyle component of it, which, you will know so well. It's diet, but not just diet, it's exercise, stress reduction, sleep. It's such huge parts, but it's then the coaching part of it is getting these guys to do these things, Jeremy.
A lot of what you talked about there does fall under, I think, culture, and at least here in North America, the food is a bit of a nightmare. It's a bit of a horror show. So even if you are, in theory, eating the right things, a lot of them have been sprayed with God knows what and have been treated with God knows what that you're putting into your body. And this is where I think a lot of times supplementation comes up. You did mention that earlier, that's sort of part of what you work with folks on. This is one that is tricky because, as you mentioned, you take one and you don't necessarily feel it. It's got to be in combination with the better sleep and all these other things. I know I take a fistful of vitamins every day, and I honestly probably couldn't tell you, why I do. There's no noticeable, like, oh, wow, I feel better. Oh, wow, I notice this when I take this. I do notice it when I stop taking, like if I stop taking magnesium, I suddenly don't sleep as well. If I don't take as much vitamin D, the depression's a little bit harder to fight off, things like that. So how do you know when you're looking at the endless wall of the many, many vitamins, if you're just out there on your own, you're not working with a coach or someone like yourself, how do I figure out which supplements I need and how do I know that they're the right ones?
Yeah, so it's a tough one. Like you say, if you're not working with someone and you don't really know, we've got what we call foundational supplements, which are, you know, the things that the body needs to get on a day-to-day basis, you know, vitamin D, zinc, B vitamins, not just B12, but all the B vitamin family, magnesium. The body needs those things. But I work with a lot of guys that when they come to me, they're taking all these different herbs. They're taking ashwagandha, they're using mushrooms, and, you know, mushrooms are a big craze now. And as great as these things can be, they're a bit like treating symptoms, a bit like, you know, what our conventional medicine care does. So they're just treating symptoms, and while they feel all right on those things, when they come off them, the problem remains. So it's the foundational stuff that people should really be looking at. I'd always say, if you don't have a clue where to start, try and go for a good multivitamin. You know, and one rule I'd always say to people is never buy your supplements at the same place you buy your toilet roll. You know, get a decent quality supplement. Pay a decent price for it, because then you know you're paying for quality, you know. So yeah, a multivitamin would be a good place to start.
Are you though, or are you maybe paying for the brand name? Because a lot of times the brand name is the one that's expensive, and I don't know that necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, there are different things to look out for. I could give you two really top companies right now that I would recommend. The one's Fawn Research, and the other is Pure Encapsulations. You know, those two I would recommend to anybody. But yeah, you know, it's not easy right now. They're coming out of everywhere, supplement companies. So it's not easy, for sure.
And a wildly unregulated market too. So who knows what you're...
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of those times. We've talked about exercise, and something else we talk about here is just, you know, starting somewhere, right? Like just getting off the couch, going for a walk, something simple. A colleague of mine was just sharing with me the fitness expert online showing the 18 best bicep workouts and ranking them and choosing the best. And if you're into bodybuilding and stuff, cool. The other 99% of us out here just need to get started. What do you recommend for folks that are probably feeling sluggish, probably feeling tired, don't feel like they have time, it's not a priority, but they keep hearing, okay, maybe I should move my ass? Where do they start? What's a good way to get them going?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, you know, and maybe some people don't want to hear it because it's not very sexy, but start really. You would have probably said this, and I've heard it as well hundreds of times on this show. Start small, do a 10-minute walk. You know, once you've got a 10-minute walk in place every day, you can either increase it or you can put something else in that slot. You can put some weights in there, because you've built the habit of that's my 10 minutes every day. But what I find with a lot of guys that I work with is if you just tell them to do something once a day, but you say, yeah, put it in anywhere you want in the day, the chances are it might not get done, or they might not have time for it. Whereas you will probably know the power of habit stacking. If you stack that, you know, if you say, right, now this is what I started doing with my breath work, yeah. I always wanted to do breath work, but I didn't really want to do it. You know, I thought it's going to benefit me, but I don't really want to do it. Okay, I want to do it every day. So as soon as every single day, what do I do every single day? I put veg in the steamer, turn the steamer on. Right. So as soon as I've turned that steamer on every single day, no matter what, I started with 2 minutes of breath work every single day. When that turned into a habit, I made it 5 minutes, and then it went up and up and up until it was 10 minutes. So, you know, coming back to the exercise piece, do something small every single day, put it on the end of an existing habit that you're already doing. This is an option, a great way to add it in, and it's got more chance of sticking. And things just add on to that over time.
And especially if it's something you like, and this is something where maybe a 10-minute walk isn't for you. Maybe you're losing your mind because you're so bored and need to be pushed more. Like, if it's not something you enjoy, you're probably going to quit, because why would you keep voluntarily doing something that you don't, on some level, either feel better from doing it or at least have a little bit of fun doing it?
Definitely. And, you know, if that is the case, because, you know, I find walking boring, but if I'm going to go out and walk, I'm going to do something like make a phone call or catch up with a friend that I haven't spoke to for a while. Then you don't even realize you're walking. You're just...
Right.
You know,
or I mean, you talk about habit stacking. I mean, that's where you listen to a motivational podcast. That's where you listen to a book that, you know, you've been meaning to read forever. Like, have it read to you while you're taking that walk.
Exactly.
Take the family, spend some time with your kids. Like, have integrated into the family lifestyle, so it's not just there's 10 less minutes with dad. You know, maybe it's something that they can do with you.
100%. Yeah. So you can make it enjoyable. There's ways of making it enjoyable for sure.
All right, so Tommy, you sent me this great list, sort of 5 first steps for guys that are very much in this situation, trying to figure out how to turn things around. Tell us what's in this guide and how our listeners can find it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's the things that the foundational things, right? And as we know, they might sound boring, but they're the things that are going to move the needle the furthest. They're the things you need to master before you add in all the other things. So let me give you an example. Sleep, right? Now, for years I knew I needed to sleep more. I just couldn't, right? I didn't know how. I didn't know about dimming lights at night and stopping eating a few hours before bed. I was eating right up until bedtime, you know. I was eating sugar and all sorts of things. I was doing all the things that were stopping me from getting a proper sleep. So in this guide, there's a lot of things that you're probably going to be like, oh, I didn't know that. You know, they're not the basic, obvious things you're normally hearing about. They're things that are really scientifically proven to help you get better rest, better nutrition, and some of the supplements that I find that most of the guys that I work with are deficient in as well. So, you know, some of the foundational things that you can take to feel and function at your best.
And where can we find that guide?
You'll find that guide. You can reach out to me. I'll get that sent across to you. You can reach out to me on Instagram, and the name is Berra Healthy. So it's BERRA_BE_healthy. Berra Be Healthy. You can find me on Facebook under Tommy Berraby as well. So I'm in those places.
We'll throw those links in the show description for this episode as well. Tommy, thanks so much for your time today. Any closing thoughts you want to leave us with here?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot, Jeremy. So I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, I hope some of the guys listening can, you know, take some of these knowledge, because knowledge is power when implemented, and you know, get to feeling their best.
That is the trick so often, right? That pesky implementation part. We've got the consuming content part down. It's the actual implementation.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time and wisdom today, Tommy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. My thanks to Tommy Berraby for joining us on the show today. You can learn more about him through the links in the show description for this episode at thefitmess.com or whatever podcast player you are using. But that's going to do it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. We will be back next week with a huge new announcement about the show and some big changes we're making here. So make sure you don't miss it. You can catch it at thefitmess.com or again on that podcast player you're using right now. Hit subscribe. You won't miss the episode. We will see you in about a week. Thanks so much for listening.
We know this podcast is amazing and it doesn't seem to lack anything, but we need a legal disclaimer. Prior to implementing anything discussed in this podcast, it is your responsibility to conduct your own research and consult your physician. You should assume that these knuckleheads don't know what they're talking about, and they're not liable for any physical or emotional issues that occur directly or indirectly from listening to this podcast.